I don't have the other. Is that all right? You need the other little thing? Or just, all right, perfect. All right. I hope everybody is doing well. It's good to see you this week and having a good week. I always need Wednesday evenings, especially after the week I've had. So I'm glad we are here tonight. Just a second, I'll ask Andy if you don't mind. Usually I do that beforehand. Say a prayer for us before we start. But do we have any special requests or anything before we get started from anybody? Yes, sir. Mhm. Oh wow. Mhm. Mm. Wow. Mrs. Jesse Gunn. Yeah, Jesse definitely needs some prayers. That's awful. Anybody else? All right, Andy.
Father, we're grateful to be together. We're thankful for the health that you've given us to be able to be here. We're thankful for the opportunities that we've already had today to be in your kingdom, to see your hand in various ways, to know your blessings. And Father, we're mindful that today we had opportunities in this room. They would have been varied person to person, but we had opportunities in some way to set an example, to speak a good word, to support someone, to ask the right question, or to give an answer. And we hope that we have been thus far good stewards of those opportunities today. Thank you for loving us and picking us up and dusting us off when we fail you. Thank you for being gracious and merciful. We're aware that we're living in a difficult time, but we know that your people have always lived through difficult times. We're mindful that you are aware and that you walk with us and you can strengthen and empower us in those individual challenges. We're mindful of this class being in consideration of various challenges and the intersection of faith and those challenges. We ask your blessings as we consider our decisions. Bless Darren and what he has to say tonight. Thank you for his willingness to teach. In Jesus' name.
Amen. All right, thank you, Andy. So we will pick back up on social media that we started last week and wrap up tonight, getting to a little bit more um, Bible verses as best we can apply those to that new technology and such. And I will begin as I did last week. This is not one where if you social media, you're a sinner. You're not, oh, that's not what this class is about. This is about the challenges it presents to us as we deal with our faith and deal with that. So I want to be real clear because um, as I got more into study this week, there are a lot of people that will tell you that. Across denominations. I mean, I was kind of surprised, actually, some of them that we kind of see as more liberal denominations because of some of their stances on, perhaps the women's role in church or LGBT issues or all these kind of things. One of their pastors, I guess, is what they would call it, flat out said, "You are not going to heaven if you have a social media account." Period. I mean, I was like, "Whoa!" I read it down, waiting to see what the catch was. That was the hook. What was it? It ended that way too. I mean, it was start to finish, and here's all the evil with it. So, um, and I did actually come across one member of the church. I don't think a preacher, but one member of Church of Christ, and pretty much said the same thing. So I want to be real clear that that's not tonight. That's not what we're about. But I do really think we need to look at making sure it's not a stumbling block for us, or if it's not necessarily a challenge to us in particular, to help those that are dealing with it, or as it confronts us. So that's what I want to pick up with. We kind of bashed social media last week. I felt like it's like, here's the benefit. We can say hi to friends, or we can, post this and post that. And then a whole rest of the class about really bashing it. So I thought, I'm going to try to balance that out a little bit and find some more of the benefits. Then I came across a government study, and it was about a 25-page document, 26 pages, I think it was. And there was a little, maybe, if I'm stretching it, 2/3 of a page that discussed the benefits of social media. Okay. One of those big benefits, the rest of the story is it helps the LGBT community, all the kids, especially those struggling with the transgender and all that, feel accepted. I mean, that was listed one of the benefits. That kind of gets into a different angle than what we as Christians might think about that, but that was listed as one of the benefits. The next 4 pages just kind of did what we did last week and just trash social media. Here's all the negatives for it, which kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that as I was reading that. And so a lot of bad stuff. So some of this, again, maybe isn't something we struggle with, um, but we need to be aware of and see this is how it really does. So I want to kind of touch on that a little bit more and then hop into some verses and some things to help us address that. But what led me to that government report, it was from the Surgeon General's uh, office. It was put out last year, early this year for last year report. I came across this op-ed, and this is a little lengthy. I usually hate to do this kind of stuff, but I want to read this because it's, um, if nothing else, it addresses what we're discussing, but also put some things on our radar screen to be mindful of as parents, as Christians, as grandparents, whatever your role is, to be aware of, some of which I hadn't really thought about. So I want to read this, a little lengthy. Anybody know our Surgeon General's name? I didn't either. So, yeah, Vivek H. Murthy. And it's been Surgeon General a couple of times and is the current one. This was an op-ed from June of this year I took this out of the New York Times, but I assume they posted it on their government site if you want to go to it. Surgeon General, why I'm calling for a warning label on social media platforms. And again, I apologize, a little lengthy, but I think it's important. I'll try to cut out as I can through here. One of the most important lessons I learned in medical school was that in an emergency, you don't have the luxury to wait for perfect information. You assess the available facts, use your best judgment, and you act quickly. The mental health crisis among young people is an emergency, and social media has emerged as an important contributor. Adolescents who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media face double the risk of anxiety and depression symptoms, with the average daily use in this age group as of the summer of 2023 was 4.8 hours. Additionally, nearly half of adolescents say social media makes them feel worse about their bodies. It's time to require Surgeon General's warning label on social media platforms stating that social media is associated with significant mental health harms for adolescents. The Surgeon General's warning label, which requires congressional action, would regularly remind parents and adolescents that social media has not been proved safe. Evidence from tobacco studies show that warning labels can increase awareness and change behavior. When asked if a warning from the Surgeon General would prompt them to limit or monitor their children's social media use, 76% of people in one survey of Latino parents said yes. To be clear, a warning label would not on its own make social media safe for young people. The advisory I issued a year ago about social media and young people's mental health included specific recommendations for policymakers, platforms, and the public to make social media safer for kids. Such measures already have strong bipartisan support and remain a priority. Legislation from Congress should shield young people from online harassment, abuse, and exploitation from exposure to extreme violence and sexual content that too often appears in algorithm-driven feeds. The measures should prevent platforms from collecting sensitive data from children and should restrict the use of features like push notifications, autoplay, and infinite scroll, which prey on developing brains and contribute to excessive use. Additionally, companies must be required to share all of their data on health effects with independent scientists and the public. Currently, they do not, and allow independent safety audits. While the platforms claim they are making their products safer, Americans need more than words. We need proof. Kind of side note to that, I mentioned last week, Facebook, the whistleblower came out in 2021, I think it was, and just totally shattered that. Facebook knew it, was promoting violence, sexual content, issues with this thing with the women's body, anorexia, all these kind of things. Knew about it, didn't care, kept doing it, and that's why we now see some of the congressional action they're talking about in here. But kind of side note, the rest of society can play a role also. Schools should ensure that classroom learning and social time are phone-free experiences. Parents, too, should create phone-free zones around bedtime, meals, and social gatherings to safeguard their kids' sleep and real-life connections, both of which have direct effects on mental health. And they should wait until after middle school to allow their kids access to social media. This is much easier said than done, which is why parents should work together with other families to establish shared rules so no parents have to struggle alone or feel guilty when their teens say they are the only one who has to endure limits. And young people can build on team focused efforts like Log Off Movement and Wired Human to promote one another in reforming their relationship with social media and navigating online environments safely. Others must help too. Public health leaders should demand digital environments for young people, healthy digital environments for young people. Doctors, nurses, and other clinicians should raise the issue of social media with kids and parents and guide them towards safer practices. One of the worst things for a parent to know is that your children are in danger yet be unable to do anything about it. That is how parents tell me they feel when it comes to social media, helpless and alone in the face of a toxic content and hidden harms. I think about Lori, a woman from Colorado who's fought back tears as she told me about her teenage daughter who took her own life after being bullied on social media. Lori had been diligent, monitoring her daughter's accounts and phone daily, but harm still found her child. There's no seatbelt for parents to click, no helmet to snap in place, no assurance that trusted experts had investigated and ensured that these platforms are safe for our kids. They're just parents and their children trying to figure it out on their own, pitted against some of the best product engineers and most well-resourced companies in the world. Parents aren't the only ones yearning for solutions. Last fall, I gathered with students to talk about mental health and loneliness. As often happens at such gatherings, they raised the issue of social media. After they talked about what they liked about social media, basically a way to stay in touch with old friends, find communities of shared identity, and express themselves creatively, a young woman named Tina raised her hand. I just don't feel good when I use social media, she said softly. Her confession opened the door for her classmates. One by one, they spoke about their experiences with social media, the endless comparison with other people that shredded their self esteem, the feeling of being addicted and unable to set limits, and the difficulty of having real conversations on platforms that too often fostered outrage and bullying. There was sadness in their voices, as if they knew what was happening to them but felt powerless to change it. I won't read through the rest, but that's okay. This is a big deal. And I think that's something that we need to be mindful of. Again, even if it's not a struggle in our faith, we got a lot of kids in our church. We obviously got them in our homes. This is what they're dealing with. And I don't know about you, I feel like that parent that said, what do we do? Right? I've learned stuff about social media. Like I told you before, I don't do it. We've kept up enough to do, kind of know what the kids are doing, know about it. So when we hear certain things, or there's things in society that we need to have conversations with them, we do. Like I know all of you probably had too. But even then, I was still overwhelmed by the negativity of it. Am I alone in that? I mean, you hear these stories. You hear the story of Lori that he mentioned in here. Um, it, I mean, that's one of it. I mean, I can't tell you how many stories I came across. And in fact, Catherine, when I gave the example last week, the girl didn't get enough clicks. All right, you talk about things that drive self-esteem down. Are literally people just posting these things and it didn't get enough likes, and I mean, major mental health issues coming from this kind of stuff. So, it is again. I mean, a national health issue. This is the Surgeon General of the United States. There was as I said, the long study or advisory that got into this, and it was like I said, I was really surprised. I thought we would promote this a little bit more because trust me, all Meta, all Alphabet, all these companies, they are spending millions upon millions of dollars lobbying Congress. I can just tell you, because at one point I was part of that. I don't do it anymore. I don't do FDA stuff. I don't do social media stuff because I can get a study saying cigarettes are safe for you, and social media is no problem. I know how to do that. All right, a lot of people do, a lot of lobbyists. They spend a lot of money on that kind of stuff. I was stunned when I saw that in a government report, kind of knowing how these kind of things work. So again, a little, maybe if I'm stretching it, 2/3 of a page out of a 25-page document, and the rest is just, man, here's the problem, and we really don't know what to do, except let's start with the warning label and make people aware of it. Right. It is all ages, and I think you said this in our class last week. If not, I'll say it because it's true for me too. I know people who we worship with inside this building that are part of the reason why I don't do social media anymore. I tell you, but if that's wrong and sinful of me, I'm sorry. But I will tell you the stuff I see from them or the comments when I show up to worship our God and to be fellowship with them. I love them. That's not the issue. I love, like the Bible tells me, those people. But instantly, what comes to mind when I see them? That social media post, whatever it is, regardless of what that is. And I don't want to be that way. I don't want that to get the wall between me and God as I'm here to worship. That's one of the big reasons, plus a lot of this negative stuff. And I see a different side of it in politics. I mean, it's a different world than I started 30 years ago. We didn't have this social media um, stuff, and it shows the stuff we see in the world around us. Everybody complains about the divisiveness. It's been there, don't get me wrong, but this just puts the spotlight on it like you will not believe. It's democratized everybody's opinion. Everybody's an expert in everything, and if they're not, they can find their 50 friends or 5,000 friends, whatever they have on social media, and say, okay, here's what I'm supposed to think. Let's all say this, right? That's what it's become. Um, so it's a big problem we need to be aware of in our families, in our societies. If your family hasn't dealt with this yet, and you have kids at home, you will. I just tell you, this is one of the things we've struggled with. We've got kind of the whole age range in our kids. We got them from 25 on down to 11. She'll quickly tell you 12 next week. We've struggled with that because it's not just, okay, here's our rules and our limits, but then it's like all the friends do this, right? And I can't keep up with all we hear this Be Real. I didn't know what Be Real. I'm trying to figure out Facebook and MySpace. I didn't know we were up to like Be Real and Twitter and all these other, I don't even know what they all are. The what? That's right. It's X now. Yeah, it's X. I mean, you can't even keep up with the names of them. Google. It's Alphabet now. Whatever.
Darren's clearly not qualified.
That's right. Yeah. I think I said before. I'm still trying to figure out how to update my pager number on my MySpace page. Right. I don't care about this stuff except for what I have to know about it for what I deal with in my work. Let's be honest. In politics, I have to figure out people and move them direction I need them to for the success of my client, whatever that looks like. Okay, so I have to understand social media. It's a lot easier to move them in a direction now. I will say that because we're going to discuss in a second. It's not always truthful what you see on social media. If you haven't figured that out yet, I wish poor Andrew was in here. Maybe I made him mad. Andrew works for Election Commission. I was going to ask him if there's any misinformation about elections out there he has to deal with because we've had some interesting conversations about that before, right? So how as a church can we deal with that is what I've been struggling with in terms of how we discuss this with a class. We are the church, each one of us together. So I think we have to start with each one of us. Again, whether it's a struggle for you or not, somebody's going to, whether it's a kid or it's a parent. Look, one of the studies, we kind of laugh about our kids always, with the phone. It's the old people too. And I don't include me in old people, but it's the old people. I think I said we went to the Reagan movie a couple of weeks ago, and the lights come down, and like we're the youngest in the audience by far. It was kind of, I don't know if I felt better about myself or worse, to be honest, leaving. But yeah, we're not young anymore. But the lights go down, and all the little glowing from everybody is a light. Everybody was on their phones while they're watching the commercials. It's crazy. Yeah. Okay, I don't feel so bad. It's a good movie, actually. If you're good, it's a well done. Yeah, no, it's a well done movie, but we talk about the kids. It's the old people who almost can be worse because they didn't grow up with it. I mean, let's kind of flip a little bit. I think a lot of these numbers, if you look at the statistics from the shift in childhood dealing with suicide rates going up. All these mental health issues. You look getting back to the community sense with the LGBT, all this transgender stuff, all these kind of things that are just boom, all of a sudden out here everywhere. It's traced directly back to the advent of social media. Right? That's the time frame. You cannot miss that correlation, right? Our kids have grown up with that. We're still trying to figure out as older people, and you get older than us, they really don't understand. So that doesn't fix it either, because there's a lot of misinformation that comes from that and is quickly shared, and there's a little more credibility because grandma and grandpa are doing that, so that's got to be right, right? So there's just like this. I'll call it a death spiral. I'll just tell you, that's what it feels like sometimes when you look at all the facts and where it leads to. With okay, how do we address this one problem when it's part of 600 that are swirling around right now? And again, before I get into a few verses, Andy, I'm gonna put you on the spot. As a church, though, I mean, really, am I wrong in thinking as a church? It's not like I'm put you too much on the spot. Like Bill and Andy can't get up and give a sermon and say, "Boom, here's what you do on this subject," because again, the Bible it doesn't say. Now, there's things we can point to what we post. Obviously, there's some certain things we can like or post or whatever that's very clearly sinful. But to say it's a sin to do this, so they can't say that. But we all have to deal with it. So as a church, am I wrong in saying individually we are kind of the church? We have to address this and what support? I mean, I don't even know. Let's be honest. What support beyond that does a church even have? Because as I said last, we have social media for our church. So it's not like a sin of utilizing it, but are there frameworks we can discuss, guidelines we can do to help in that? And again, not to totally throw you into the wolves here, but I'm struggling. I mean, we could talk about this the next 6 weeks, and I still don't have answers. I can give you all kinds of crazy studies I found. I'm struggling. I got some verses in us individually how to deal with that. We're going to hop into it in a minute here. Maybe that's part of what will come to mind. But I mean, collectively as a community of a church of brothers and sisters trying to figure this out and deal with it. Am I missing something?
No. There's a verse that comes to mind which may not sound like it deals with this, but the back half of it to me is important. It says one reason that we don't want to become angry. Okay, we got to be angry and sin not. So the issue is not is anger by itself sinful. And first you have to define what qualifies as anger.
Right.
Sin, but before any action is considered, it's not it's okay. But what's going to be done with it? It could make it become sinful.
Right.
But then there's this phrase in Scripture: the anger of man. For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God.
Right.
Okay, the back half of that verse, I think, can be placed upon as a question upon all kinds of things in my choices.
Mm-hmm.
That's clearly the emphasis that we're supposed to be about the production of the righteousness, producing the righteousness of God.
Right.
If you want to call it the fruits of the Spirit, I think it drives the same lane.
Right.
And so anything, for example, if we pulled that down and had a PowerPoint and pushed a button and flashed up all the stuff people say, the Bible doesn't say,
Right.
the Bible doesn't say this, the Bible doesn't say this,
Right.
the Bible doesn't say this. Okay, wait a minute. What does the Bible say?
Right.
And therefore, it gives a greater principle, more generic principle. Therefore, if it says be pure, it doesn't have to enumerate every little thing that somebody could possibly come up with. Decide, is it okay to this? Is it okay to this? Is it okay? It says be pure. Therefore, anything that hinders my purity is not something that needs to be happening. Okay? Be holy as I am holy. Well, anything that hinders my pursuit of holiness then is not a good idea, right?
Yeah.
So, because it does say be this, and once I arrive at what it does say, it helps me answering questions underneath there that I don't have to enumerate every little thing because it says this.
Right.
Well, if I'm supposed to be about producing the righteousness of God, then one overarching premise that the church should never lose is that we exist to produce the fruit of righteousness of God. We exist to do that. Ephesians 2:10, we're God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do, that we should walk in them. What kind of good works? Well, those things that produce the righteousness of God. So there's an overarching question that can be helpful to the whole church at any time and almost anything. Does this stand to produce righteousness or hinder righteousness in me and in other people? Okay, so that's if the church doesn't have overarching principles, because Scripture is full of overarching principles that are summed up with specifics in other ways. This has to be one of those.
Right.
The production of righteousness, the fruit of righteousness. And so we have to have, would it be a great idea for congregations in their buildings to have posted on walls as they walk around nice buildings? And I see this sometimes in other buildings. Just reminders. This one says producing righteousness,
right,
whatever, or maybe it's that verse. Down here, down the hall, you make a turn and there's something else. So that as we migrate about the building, it's kind of like without even recognizing it, we're constantly keeping this in front of us. Our children are seeing it in front of them. One thing the church can do is choose what it does say.
Right.
And constantly says.
Right.
To its
and that's where I thought you would go. And again, I apologize for putting you on the spot. I think as a church, to start with, what can the church do? One, we got to be aware and talk about this, because, like I said, I don't do that. But I know a little bit. But as I studied, man, I could have got depressed in a hurry, and I did. I'll be real honest. I needed a good cry one day, and this stuff gave it to me. Just to be honest. But that said, it is here. We have to deal with it. I'm going to read this one part real quick. This is from a psychologist. You started with anger with this. And it's talking about why we do this stuff. The same goes for frustrations we might encounter online. On the internet, it can feel like we have no choice but to be pulled into arguments, especially when algorithms are tailored to our own opinions. Any break in those feedback loops can be jarring. There's a lot of pressure to make public statements that align with your group's interest in order to be accepted by that group. It's very easy to get baited into these online debates because we want to channel this anger and hopelessness and despair that we feel. Right? That's what your algorithms are rigged toward. Now, granted, some of that's by how we interact with them to get those algorithms going. I study this because I think I mentioned there's some stuff in my algorithms like it's not me. I like, why is this here kind of stuff. And I think I alluded to, I kind of had to fix a problem with somebody who was looking at that kind of stuff. So I figured out it's part of one of my algorithms. But as I dug into this and I looked at how we target, because we do this some in the political side, it's demographics. It's male 18 to 25. I need to target with this message. It's women 55 and up. It's people that work in certain industries, certain income. Like all this data is out there. I mean, you give me time. There's very little I can't find about you. Now the rest of that story, I never do that to you if I know you. But when it comes to I need to find this group. Does that add up to 50% plus one so my candidate can win? I can find that data. All right. You'll be stunned, very dismayed at the information that's out there about you right now. Okay. That's why the algorithms also line up. Was you fit this profile? We know this profile thinks X. So boom, here you go. Right. But what they really feed off is the negativity. You look at our media, aside from social media, it's again about revenue and ratings, period. Clicks, that kind of stuff. That's what drives their money. How do we get those? We get them on Fox News if you're on one side. You get them on MSNBC if you're on the other side, or whatever various social media you go to for your things. We I kind of joke about our mother. Like I call my mom, I hear Sean Hannity in the background. I know what that phone call is going to be like before she even says, "How are you?" I just know. Right? That's how that conversation is going to be because the blood pressure's up. It's boom, 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 boom. Here's what's wrong with the world. There's no way that stuff doesn't affect you. Period. There's 0% chance you are not going to be affected to some degree by that. In fact, that's what a lot of, I want to get into some of the studies. I think we need to hop into some Bible verses here I got. But one of the things talked about is that one of these groups I mentioned, there are a couple of groups that are trying to do some stuff, and they are young people driven groups. But one of them, it was a challenge for them to limit their social media use, and they monitored it. Like everybody could log on. I mean, it was like a collective boom. We're not going to do this, and I think it was 70 some students, like 75 got together in this group and did it. Like very strictly monitored their social media, no more than 30 minutes a day. Every single one of them, I think it was 3 weeks later, talked about their improved mental health, improved self-esteem, improved health overall. Just they're getting out and doing more. They're doing other things. Just in general, felt better about their lives. No negativity was one. So they had comments from individuals. Some of the things, one of them flat out said, "I didn't like who I was, but I didn't realize it. I was very negative, and I didn't know it till I stopped for a while." Okay, this is from kids. I mean, these are like our age kids, teenage kids decided to do this. So the negativity, that's where this comes from, right? So how do we address that? Andy kind of touched on that in some verses. I got a good preacher, and I'm sure I've heard Andy or Bill one give a lesson. You know how preachers are with their acronyms. They got to do something. Think, right? Think. We're taught this before we speak. Think, right? Is it true? Okay. Social media in general, the online stuff, truth is incredibly relative at best. I'll tell you. In fact, I'll read this. We'll get back into some verses real quick. I found this very interesting. Lies spread faster than the truth. There was worldwide concern over false news and the possibility it can influence political, economic, and social well-being. To understand how false news spreads, there's a group of professors, I can't say, they used a data set of rumor cascades on Twitter from 2006 to 2017. About 126,000 rumors were spread by around 3 million people. False news reached more people than the truth. The top 1% of false news cascades diffused to between 1,000 and 100,000 people, whereas the truth rarely diffused to more than 1,000 people. Falsehood also diffused faster than the truth. The degree of novelty and the emotional reactions of recipients may be responsible for the differences observed. It's the old, was it Winston Churchill? A lie spreads faster than the truth before. What is it? Before it gets, a lie can spread around the world before the truth gets his pants. I was going to say something like that. It's like I know it's some article. Okay, that was Winston Churchill, like when radio. I mean, it wasn't even TV; it was radio, right? He also said that the truth is so valuable; it's often protected by a bodyguard alive. Exactly. That is our social media. It's just that simple. I mean, I could stand up here and talk for hours about misinformation that's used in politics. Okay, I mean, hours. I can talk about this stuff. We have foreign governments that influence our elections with bots, misinformation, all that kind of stuff. They rig the algorithms. Yes, that is a fact. The rest of the story is we know that because we do that with their elections. So be honest, it's a known thing we do, right? Because it moves people. They do that. They target certain segments of the population through social media to get them more engaged, right? And I'm talking just, I think I said before, billions of dollars spent to do this, right? That is what's doing this, and that's aside from our interaction, right? Because we're eating cats and dogs now in Springfield, Ohio, or whatever, like everybody's hiding their pets indoors now because somebody tweeted, perhaps misinformation, of course it's yeah, Haitians aren't eating your goldfish and your dogs. I mean, it's all right, people. But that's been going on for weeks. No, they're really not. It's been discredited. Trust me. It's been debunked. We've had conversations with one of the people spreading it. So, yeah. Is there a little, this much of where that story came from? Yeah. So what happens with this stuff? Okay. Stuff is thrown out there that's crazy to get people to react to it. And there's a little truth sometimes to that crazy. Or when you repeat it enough, it's not crazy anymore. Okay. That's communication 101, right? Okay, so let's start with some Bible verses. Romans 12:2. Somebody mind? Would you mind that one, Kaylin? Proverbs 15:4. Would you mind that one, Kyle? 1 Peter 2:11 and 12. Tim, would you mind that one? Andy kind of touched on this. This is where we're going. In fact, it may have been this verse. We are in the world, right? We are here. Kalen, in Romans 12, too. Maybe this is some mindset we can do as one, we're dealing with this. Two, how do we deal with this? And again, social media was not here when this Bible was written, but you know what? Neither was radio and TV and telephones and all this kind of stuff. These are some good general principles in our communications and our mindset, as Andy was kind of talking about, we can do. Romans 12, 2.
Not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect.
All right. 1 Peter 2:11. I'll give you that one, Tim.
11 and 12.
11 and 12, yeah, please.
Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation.
Okay, this is one I kind of touched on last week, right? I think I used you for my example, Kaylin, actually. Okay, Kaylin and I are just getting to know each other for the purpose of our discussion. Kaylin's kind of curious about this Bible stuff, but he's not too sure about it just yet. But we connect, we start talking. Then he gets on my social media figures. We're going to become friends now and all this kind of stuff. Oh, man, but then he gets on there and I've made some like really stupid or ignorant comment, or I love this particular person in politics and he hates that person or whatever. What just happened to our discussion? As we discuss what we're here for, right? What we're here for. What just happened to that, right? We were right here getting along great. We had this, as we know, that's how we make these connections. We bring people to God, relationships. It just went from right here to boom, right here. That's one of the things we have to be uh, mindful of in our conduct on social media and in general. Yes.
And in that point is like we're not always going to get along with every
Right.
Christian. I mean, we are to love them, but sometimes different personalities. But when you're talking with somebody and that happens,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But on social media, if you offend somebody who may have no clue, and then they're just gone,
Right.
and we lose people without even realizing it. So that's, I think, the extra danger in
Mm-hmm.
it is that we can lose a lot of people from the church and have no idea why. They just all of a sudden.
Yeah, I can tell you, somebody who used to come to this congregation. We had a conversation about social media. They didn't like some of the comments that people made relating to some of the political ideas they have, and they do not come here anymore. I tell you, I had a now. Thankfully, they still go to church, not ours, and still great. One of those churches, good churches, we would preach favorably about. From the church league sports we still interact with. So, but they straight up told me that's why. Now, I think if that person hadn't been rooted in their faith that they were, right? And maybe they weren't going to church anymore. But that's it. So again, those are the things we have to be mindful of. Is that to say don't social media post? No, don't say who you're voting for. No, that's not the point. It's to be mindful of that and the way in which you do that. Yes, sir.
Is that the song you just said relates to the last word of
Mm-hmm.
verse 12?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of translations, maybe most translations, will have the word visitation
Mm-hmm.
there, but somebody may have a translation that uses the word opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word. The word for visitation is it's opportunity.
Right.
That's what it means. Okay. What does it say in at the close of verse 12? They may, by your good works which they observe, glorify God in the day of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
God is, as we have opportunity, we're to be glorifying God as we have opportunity. If we lose our opportunity, they're gone.
Right.
I've lost my opportunity. Where
That's our opportunity.
This is opportunity.
Right.
Gone is a lost opportunity. Right. It's going to be hard to glorify God in the way that He's talking about right here without opportunity.
Exactly.
Because they're speaking of influence.
Yeah, and that's
with politics anything you say, we should be always presenting God's light, and it goes to the verses on, let your words be like honey, and season with salt. It's all of anything that we're saying needs to have that put forward, and that's not what people tend to do on Facebook. It tends to be, it kind of goes back to what you said, the way to get out their anger, or the way to sound off and not have to have somebody in their face. It's a whole lot easier to do that if you're not face to face with somebody.
Exactly. Which leads us to Kyle, if you don't mind, Proverbs 15, verse 4.
A gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit.
The gentle tongue. How do we describe, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris with a gentle tongue? Don't worry about doing that. First of all, you don't have to share your opinion, I think, is rule number one when it comes to social media. Fantastic if you have one. Don't feel like you need to tell everybody about it. But that said, we can do these things with the gentle tongue. We all know a ton of verses about kindness, all these kind of things. But these two verses kept coming up as I'm kind of looking at social media. Again, getting into what, not just Church of Christ, but all kinds of denominations and writings about social media. Which the funny thing is, it's very new. It's not just us that are starting to talk about this. Most of these articles are from like within the past year. This isn't something that's been talked about in other churches enough too. And everybody is seeing now, boom, we need to do this. Matthew 5:29, for the sake of time, I'll just read these. Matthew 5:29 and 30 came up in almost every article, it seemed like. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it's better that you lose one of your own members than your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it's better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body go into hell. That was, again, I won't say every article I read about the Christian social media, but pretty close to it. That was a verse that kept popping up. So even as the Surgeon General is trying to figure out in society, and we're trying to figure out in our homes, this is what kept coming up. Like, throw the phone away. Delete your get rid of your social media accounts, because here's why. It is such a stumbling block for so many people, so divisive in churches, among brethren. That's what it's saying, right? If your right eye is causing you a problem, get rid of it. So that kept coming up. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, if you want to open another can of worms, you can do online.
Well, I only got 1 minute, so don't.
Don't
get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Online gaming.
Oh yeah.
You want to blush? Jump in one of those lobbies.
Oh yeah.
PlayStation.
Yeah.
Xbox.
We're we're using the term social media from this stuff, but it's a very broad technology. And again, maybe that's again for awareness. Like I said, I kind of study this stuff. I had to utilize it. I don't use it personally, but I've had to utilize it with clients and some stuff I do. So I'm kind of familiar. I mean, I've been stunned by some of the stuff I've been studying over the past few weeks with this stuff. Stuff I thought I knew or knew better. That, no, this can't be this bad. Oh, it's worse. Is what's so scary about it. It's even worse than I thought. And those kept coming up a lot. We kind of didn't touch on them. Again, maybe that's those things that are byproducts of this, or maybe something we address.
This is probably a whole nother class, but we've talked about the negativity, but just the whole it being an idol, how much time you're spending on it. Not even if it's time. Let's say you're doing it, for the good, but it's just you and your device.
Yeah.
I always think a good thing to do is any phone, it's got your usage on it.
Right.
Compare that to other stuff that you're doing.
Oh yeah.
So where is your attention?
Are we stewards of our time? Are we putting this is going into our heart? Are we is our reaction, okay, I got to run and put out my thought on Facebook before what verse goes with that? Right? I mean, these are the kind of things, again, we're all guilty of, probably. It's just kind of stop and think about it, I guess. So we'll end at 7:30 here, but let me start with this one. Romans 14:12. So then each of us will give an account of himself to God. Okay, on Judgment Day, are you going to be super comfortable? Wait, if we all got our phones, I don't know if we get to take them to heaven. We always have them with us, right? Or you can pull up your Instagram account or your Facebook. God says, look, I know you did pretty good. out of the 10 Commandments, you kept like 9 of them really well. Like we didn't kill anybody. We didn't do all the bad things, the world does. Are you going to feel super comfortable picking up your phone and scrolling through your Instagram feed or your Facebook comments or whatever, all the Twitters, all this kind of stuff? Not just what you posted, but what you liked. How your algorithms are all loaded. Again, I know why mine is, and I can't figure out how to change it. So I guess just set a new account up or something. I don't know. But I mean, really, are you going to feel comfortable? Romans 14:12. So each of us has to give an account of ourselves to God. I mean, just something to think about. Because I think this is something we need to continue addressing and thinking about as a church, as we strive for the answers and kind of, again, if nothing else, awareness of maybe you're not struggling with this, but this person right next to you is. Or we've all got kids, teenagers. How can we help each other out and be mindful of that as we all try to get to heaven? All right, we got to go. We're out of time. We have much more we can say. Andy's got something he wants to say real quick. I can see before we go here.
Right?
Yeah, Eddie. Yeah, yeah.
Our common,
Yeah.
Our common friend ended every class with, because I don't know that you're aware of this.
Oh, yeah.
7th grade Bible class at Lipscomb.
Yep.
It's all right. That's it. So, questions? Look around. No 7th grader had a question. We were just ready to go to lunch.
That's right.
This period was right before that. Questions? Comments? Silent. Exhortations. We didn't know what that meant. So
nobody had one. They
don't.
Yeah.
And then he'd say stupid remarks, and 18 7th grade boys. So you paused, and I thought maybe.
Look. I already feel very ignorant and stupid in studying about this stuff. Just to be real honest, my eyes have been open to stuff I knew was a problem, and then, man, it's even worse. It's even worse, and it's affecting us. And it's almost like watching that negative TV and all these kind of things. You don't even realize it's affecting you. It's like the poor girl in the study, like where they're limiting their use to 30 minutes a day. She's like, I didn't even know I was that negative and bad of a person until I stopped doing it. I don't like that person. I think there's a lot, we got to go. But in reading about this, I have a little bit of hope because there's an awareness of it's a problem. I think there's more of that than we realize. A lot of these organizations that are started by teens and early college year kind of people. How do we get away from this? And they're not strong enough to get rid of it on their own. But they're getting together and doing these kind of accountability type of things and studying together on here's the negative and kind of looking at each other counts. You don't need to do that kind of stuff or monitor your times and stuff. So there's some hope and some good things, but that's like that much compared to the whole societal stuff we have to address. So, all right. Thank you all very much.